All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 7th LAFCO meeting here today. I'd like to call our meeting to order. Could we please call roll, please? Who's doing it? Okay, Eric. Okay.
Commissioner Desmond?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson? Absent. Commissioner Becker?
Present.
Commissioner White is absent. Commissioner McKenzie?
Here.
Commissioner Willis?
Here.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Here.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Vargas is absent. Alternate Commissioner McCann is absent. Alternate Commissioner Drake?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Von Wilpert is absent. Alternate Commissioner Mathis?
Present.
So there is a quorum with 6 commission members present.
All right, thank you very much, Erica. Okay, Commissioner Becker, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge
allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
liberty and justice for all.
What's your plan altogether?
Yeah, you got to practice that.
Wow, I'm sorry. Didn't work out.
Okay. Okay, our first item here is the agenda review. Keen, do we have any updates for today's agenda?
Actually, we'll first check in with council with respect to a disclosure on a commissioner participating remotely, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, this is under agenda item number 2, which is our standing item for commissioners that may need to participate remotely under the new rules, including the just cause exception, which allows a commissioner to participate remotely if some caregiving obligations for immediate family warranted. It does not require commission approval, but it does require disclosure from the commissioner of the general nature of the circumstances, and it also does require disclosure from the commissioner of whether anyone over the age of 18 is present in the room with them. And with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Vanderlyn to make a disclosure.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Unfortunately, I can't be with you this morning. I have a need to provide caregiving for my spouse who just had a medical procedure for both. And this exception would apply to both the commission meeting and the EO compensation meeting remotely. There is no one in my office at all this morning. I'm by myself. My wife is in a different room.
Okay, that's it.
All right, we're good. All right, thank you. Any commissioners have any updates that they would like to announce?
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Andy. Glad you're here. Any commissioners have anything, changes or updates to the agenda? Hearing none, seeing none online. Okay.
I do have one change to the agenda review.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Chair. So actually one change to the agenda and then one supplemental correspondence on the dais. With respect to the change, staff is requesting that we punt and continue item 7A to our October 1st meeting. That is the Camino del Fuente proposal. We're getting close with the applicant on some condition language, but we're just not there yet. So we all agreed continuing would be appropriate. And then separately on the dais, all of you will see a red line track version of a memorandum of understanding. This is a supplement as part of 5G, as in girl, our proposed MOU with the county for our new planning grant. The changes are somewhat cosmetic and are improvements. There's no substantive changes made, but they are from Commission Counsel's office. So when the time comes and we get to the consent calendar, if a motion could just simply reference the updated MOU that's on the dais, as well as has been made available to Commissioner Vanderlyn electronically, that would be much appreciated. So with that, we are good to go, Chair.
Okay, I guess I have a question. This is the first time I've seen the red line. So what are these red lines doing? What's been changed?
Well, it's more of editing for purposes of making sure that we are following the template set by the Department of Conservation in their contracting form. So they are aligning with verbiage that the state would like to see in the agreement itself.
But there's no major money moving around or anything like that, or any commitments being changed? Is that
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so I think, didn't hear from any of the commissioners make any changes, so we'll move into public comments. Do we have any, Erica, do we have any public comments for anyone to speak on something that's not on today's agenda?
None received.
None received? Any online? No emails?
No.
Pigeon carrier, whatever? Nothing? Okay, we got it all. Okay, we're going to move on to our scheduled presentations, item 5. Do we have the Association to Incorporate La Jolla here today? We do?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Cade, you going to kick this off? I'll let you do that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Chair, thank you. Chris Cade, LAFCO Consultants. This morning, LAFCO staff has invited the Association for the City of La Jolla to make a presentation regarding their potential incorporation proposal. The group has spent a great deal of time and resources over the past year in preparing their pre-application materials as necessitated under LAFCO policies. As you may know, their efforts have garnered a fair amount of media attention. Given all of this, we felt it was appropriate to invite them in today to provide an informational presentation to the Commission and provide an opportunity for Commissioners to ask questions. While no proposal has been filed, this presentation will give yourselves, as well as LAFCO staff, an opportunity to become more aware of the information surrounding what could potentially be a significant proposal. I have been tasked as the point person to the potential proponents to assist in navigating what is a heavy lift in LAFCO laws. This includes the receipt and review of a significant amount of data from the City of San Diego and the county, all of which is necessary to make informed assumptions and judgments. General questions or observations from the Commission are welcome, especially regarding the process. We'd ask that you reserve comments on the merits of the topic for another day and time. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Trace Wilson and JD Emerson for their presentation.
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you all. Happy Monday morning at 8 a.m. After 2 weeks in Hawaii with my 4 kids, this is a treat.
And I've been here slogging through everything, so I get my treat later.
So Priscilla, does someone have the presentation?
Here it goes.
Oh, awesome, okay. So we'll do this very quick. I know we're all quick studies here, but we'll go through the presentation in 5 minutes and then we'll open it up for discussion. Janie and I happen to be the president of the association. Janie is the first vice president. We have 6 board members. We'll grow it to about 13. We associated a year ago. We've been working for 2 years on this proposal, and we have hired Richard Berkson as our fiscal analyst, if you will. The mayor's office put their A team on this. We're very appreciative. Matt Vesby has been working with us with 6 others to give us the data that we've requested, and they have provided that. So we're sorting through the numbers right now, and our purpose is to really to help the region of San Diego, to help the city of San Diego, and to help the community of La Jolla. Next slide, please. As I said, we have 6 board members. Ed Witt is the head of our Maintenance Assessment District and the Community Foundation of La Jolla. Diane Kane is the past president of La Jolla Community Planning Association. Sharon Wampler is an activist in La Jolla. Mary Monk is the chairwoman of the Monk Foundation and the past president of the Rec Center Advisory Group. Janie Emerson is the president of the La Jolla Shores Association. Next. We started out by meeting with various cities that we think are good precedent for us. We have been advised by, and she may be on our call right now, Christy Hogan, who was the attorney that helped take Malibu into incorporation back in the early 90s, late 80s.
We also met with Del Mar and discussed with them the issues of a coastal city in the county.
And of course, in our lifetimes, we've seen Encinitas and Solana Beach incorporate out of the county of San Diego. Next. Just a quick analysis, I won't go through it, of the various cities that have been incorporated out of the county of San Diego in the last, call it 50 years. La Jolla would be about 7 miles and about 40,000 people. Next. 7 square miles of this. So we've gone through, we've met with numerous politicians through the last 2 years. We've met with all of our community boards and leaders. Next. And of course with Keene and Priscilla. You can skip through this. Next.
I think my laptop is really slow this morning.
That's Monday, that's what happens.
It's blinking.
So this is the proposed boundary lines. You'll see it goes from Pacific Beach in the south, north to Del Mar. Obviously, the ocean is the west boundary. And Highway 5 is the majority of the boundary on the east side with a carve out for UCSD. It goes, the line does go across Highway 5 at one point to encompass Scripps Memorial Hospital. You all may know that that was started by Ellen Browning Scripps, and as part of the charter, it's to be in the city of La Jolla. So that's why that little piece is there.
Next.
Okay, I think it's starting to freeze, so let me.
By the way, the southern border sort of jogs and jiggles around various neighborhoods. So we've looked at 92037, we've looked at the Bird Rock MAD, we've looked at the community plan to understand exactly where that line should be, but that's certainly up for
And there are
negotiation.
lots of canyons in that area, so instead of being a straight line across, it will sort of look like a jagged tooth. The intent was to keep neighborhoods intact and not have something going right down the middle of a neighborhood that you're here and you're on the other side. So that was the intent.
So we've been working closely with Priscilla and with Keene. Thank you for your help, by the way. And Chris, thank you. Very helpful to be transparent and get the proper information out to the public as we move through this. Next. Next.
It looks like Due's computer's
Yeah.
slowing down, so perhaps
Okay.
Sorry about this.
maybe just some main points on key takeaways, where you are right now, where you
So,
pivoting
okay, yeah,
towards,
yeah,
and then
thank you.
we have some questions.
That's perfect, yeah. So why are we doing this? I happen to be a native San Diegan. We think that this will be a win for the county of San Diego, for the city of San Diego, and obviously the community of La Jolla will benefit. We are one of the communities that actually can afford ourselves. We think that the city of San Diego needs to focus on other areas, and we'd like to see a vision for La Jolla that actually benefits the county. So.
Also, La Jolla is one of the key destination points for people coming to San Diego, like the zoo, Balboa Park, other things. It needs to be maintained up to a standard where people will want to continue to come. As president of La Jolla Shores Association, we've been grappling with comfort stations in the shores that you have liquid up to your ankles if you come in there because they aren't being properly maintained. Your choices, if you have kids at the beach, you can figure it out, not nice. That's just a small example of some of the challenges, and we would love to be able to showcase this area to bring more tourism, more commerce, more benefit to the entire region as a regional top 5-star destination. And we believe we can do this more economically and in a more pointed fashion to the area and what it really needs. The city being as big as it is, it's difficult for them to carve out individual areas and service just the areas, and they shouldn't. That's part of the beauty of all of San Diego, is that it's very diverse and that different areas need different things. Everybody should have parks that are functional with good bathrooms. Everybody should have libraries where kids can go at any point in time. And so by doing this, we can take the time, effort, and money that the city spends on La Jolla, which is one of the oldest areas in the city and has huge infrastructure problems, and we can take it out of the city, do it ourselves, and then free all of that up so that the city can service these other areas. It makes the whole county and the whole area stronger.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for the presentation. Mr. Willis, you
Yes.
seem to have your hand in the air.
I'm a native San Diego also. As long as I can remember, La Jolla has talked about this. Why all of a sudden the renewed emphasis on it now?
Well, even before the 2 years ago, several of us got together to look at how could we be part of the solution for the challenges that are facing the city of San Diego. We looked at an extended MAD, we looked at special districts, we looked at all sorts of things, and we just kept coming back to the fact that what made the most sense was to be its own city. And this is not a, we're leaving, it's how can we partner with the city to make this whole area better for everybody. So it's a totally different attitude and effort than it ever has been before. Trace?
Yeah, how can we deliver a better San Diego to our children?
Do you both have business cards I'd like to be able to follow up on you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know I'm not gonna steal Steve's thunder because he's gonna ask about the homeless thing, but I also have a concern about how you're gonna deal with that, so.
Okay.
The homelessness is a big deal throughout the county.
Well, both that and affordable housing, we already have some creative ideas on in our area. There are ways to infill the center of our city and have much better housing and affordable housing, and it revitalized that area. We've been working on this for over a year and have some really wonderful ideas. The city of San Diego doesn't even have us on the radar screen to change our community plan anytime in the next 10 years. So under the city, we can't even do these things.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Magnus, yes.
Yeah, I had the honor of representing La Jolla in the 90s when I was on the city council.
Yep.
And it was the topic talked about in La Jolla for a long time. I want to get clear in my mind that you're talking about La Jolla being a separate city from the city of San Diego.
Correct.
So it's a
which will still be
detached
part of the county of San Diego.
Yes.
Well, we're already part of the county.
Yeah.
Everybody is that lives
So
here.
so that won't change, okay. I'm wondering, it's always been an undercurrent in La Jolla. And there are a lot of things that you have to do and cost you some money too to get to where you want to go. But why now is it, to me, is a significant question, because I wonder if it has anything to do with SB 10. As you know, the Planning Commission passed the mayor's housing package on the condition that SB 10 be left out. And the mayor's agreed to that. So SB 10, as I see it, is no longer a concern to the many property owners, particularly in the single-family zones.
The biggest concern was our crumbling infrastructure and the city just deteriorating in an unbelievable fashion quickly. It had nothing to do with us.
Also,
Okay, so
there is no
sharp change on the kind of things that you need to be the kind of community you want to be. So it's strictly the incentive of wanting to be able to do a better job to
Yes.
take care of La Jolla. Is that it?
Absolutely.
There's no current future vision for La Jolla from the city of San Diego, so we want to help.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Mr. Whitbury.
Well, first, Mr. Cate, thank you very much for inviting the association to present. Appreciate that. And Mr. Wilson and Ms. Emerson, thank you for taking the time to share your vision with us. It was mentioned earlier, but I also want to acknowledge Matt Besby and Rolando Charbel, who is here with us from the city's financial team that has provided a lot of information to the proponents of this. I have a few questions. One of the largest expenditures for a municipality is a police force. And so I'm wondering if the vision for a proposed city of La Jolla would be to form its own police force or to contract with the sheriff's department.
It would be to contract with the San Diego Police Department. And we have spoken to the union, and we've spoken to the chief,
Yes.
and they are supportive of this. So the way we see this as beneficial fiscally is that we'll be contracting back to the city of San Diego and taking a huge amount of cost away from the current city.
One thing, these priorities and what's in-house and what's leased out are one of the slides, and so perhaps LAFCO can have that printed out or have the slide presentation given to all of the commissioners so that you have that information.
Any contract with the San Diego Police Department would have to be approved by the San Diego City Council. As you probably know, the City of San Diego Police Department is currently understaffed. There may be an obligation within the City of San Diego to use its officers to serve City of San Diego residents rather than contracting those services out. That may be something that you would want to consider as you evaluate this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question has to do with homelessness. The City of San Diego recently passed a prohibition on homeless encampments on public property, and it has begun enforcing that prohibition on homeless encampments on public property. If La Jolla were to become its own city, San Diego's prohibition on encampments would no longer apply in La Jolla. La Jolla could pass its own prohibition on encampments, but it would be largely unenforceable because La Jolla doesn't have any homeless shelters. Have you given, and you'd be forgiven if you haven't thought about that particular issue yet, but I wanted to ask if you have given any thought to how you would approach that.
Yes, we have. We would have to deal with it as any other city has to deal with this type of problem. Those types of specific solutions would be up to the new city to decide exactly how they would enact it in their city council. And we've already looked at what a city council would be, how many people, city manager is one of the things, that type of government that we want to have. So we've sort of outlined those things, but it would be inappropriate for us to take a stand on any specific issue, but it definitely goes within your own city.
My last question has to do with water, which is something which this commission has spent a fair amount of time on lately. Obviously, if La Jolla were its own city, its water rates would be based on the cost of service of providing water just within La Jolla, rather than a City of San Diego average. La Jolla has older infrastructure on average than the city does, and lots of hills. Have you considered the impact on water rates for La Jolla homes and businesses?
Again, that's a very specific question that we're working through, and once we get to any of those solutions, we'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Mr. Drake.
Well, first off, thank you very much for coming here. It's obviously going to be a very complicated problem. I can see a lot of attorneys and engineers making a lot of money trying to get where we are.
They always make a lot of money on whatever they do, don't
Let me
they?
give you some questions to think about. When you draw your border around UCSD, do you include or exclude all of the research and the biology buildings that are around it?
Include
So you include in the city?
the northern side.
Okay, very good.
So the boundary there goes La Jolla Village Drive, west off of Highway 5, to North Torrey Pines Road, north, and then comes across Genesee. So it just carves out the main campus there with just a little tiny blip that goes around another house.
UCSD is a city upon itself, as we all know.
Yeah.
With 45,000 students, with a population of 40,000 in La Jolla, it would absorb.
Exactly. So the demand for services there would still be provided by the city of San Diego. Understood.
Yes.
Currently, all of that nasty infrastructure that you commented on was built by the city of San Diego over the last roughly 500 years. So it's obviously in a very deteriorated state. But right now, today, the city of San Diego has strict liability for damages caused by sewer spills, water leaks, and such as that. Would the city of La Jolla absorb all of that liability immediately?
That would be something that would be part of the negotiations in the separation, and it also would be have to work for both parties. As you all are probably well aware, this has to be a revenue neutral situation. So that would all be part of the discussions.
Understood. You also mentioned you're going to be outsourcing law enforcement, but you've also got development, planning commission, building, construction, all of the things that a city has to do. Are you going to outsource those things as well, or absorb them inside?
No, I don't know if that slide's available, but Park and Rec, DSD would be two of the things that are in-house.
Planning.
Planning.
Where would City Hall be?
That's a good question. We would lease something initially within the city, like other cities in formation have done. Too bad we aren't ready now. There's a bank building that's perfect right on Girard, but we aren't there yet. So, you know, something will come when we're ready to move.
But we are being advised by Del Mar and other cities on how they operate it.
Very good. Thank you.
And we want to make sure that we have done all of our due diligence, that when we bring this to you all, that we've looked at everything that we possibly can. If any of you think of questions that we should be looking at, please let Chris or Keen know. Because we don't want to move faster than the data dictates. We want to make sure that we've looked at everything, that this is a good, solid effort, that it's not wasting anybody's time, and that it really can move forward.
This is a non-political thing. This is an amicable thing. It's our intent to actually do better for the county of San Diego and the city of San Diego.
Just one more question, if I may.
Sure.
The question arises, of course, about the integrity of the La Jolla Zip and to protect the Scripps Hospital. Is that going to be intact under this?
We hope so, yes. That is within the boundary line,
Yeah.
yes.
It was Ellen's wish that Scripps be maintained within the community of La Jolla. So when it moved in 1969 from Prospect to Genesee, it's within that 5-mile radius.
The northwest toe is within that 5-mile radius. They just made it.
Well, I want to say thank you for the presentation and for bringing this to light and for bringing this to our attention here at LAFCO. A lot of the questions you're getting, I think, are more, you know, what happens after you, achieve maybe separation or whatever the case may be and become your own city. I guess what I really want, from this group, Keen, is whatever the process is and what we need to be looking for here moving forward. I know it's going to take some time. We just had a separation or detachment hearing, and I got very knowledgeable of how things get separated from the water authority. So I guess now it's going to be how an entity separates from a city. So I just want to make sure we have the process and we have all of the, the legalities of moving through it, so that it's a citizen's decision to do that. Great, okay, but then how does we as a body manage that, handle that? What are our decisions and what those consist of? So I guess as we go through the process, we need to, I particularly, and probably the rest of us, need to be up to speed on the process that follows.
Very good. Yeah, so thank you, Chair, and thank you again for the great presentation. So commissioners, as Chris mentioned, this would be a heavy lift, and there's really 3 unique parts of the process to do this type of incorporation. So the first is what the group here is already up to. So under your adopted policies and guidelines, before an incorporation can actually be filed with LAFCO, we direct prospective applicants to prepare what is referred to as a draft comprehensive fiscal analysis. And that's the document right now that they are working with Matt and Richard and others in pulling data to somewhat broadly, but nevertheless importantly assess, can this be revenue neutral, right? That's the key term. Do no harm to the city of San Diego. So that's the first part. If the proponents determine that they have the math that supports a revenue neutral proposal, then they file at LAFCO. And LAFCO then goes through its process, and amongst other things, you independently prepare a comprehensive fiscal analysis that asks the question, can this be revenue neutral? Now, state law says it needs to be at least for 3 years. Commissioners, you have discretion to expand that should you feel it's appropriate. If at that time the commission thought a proposal was both appropriate in terms of your orderly growth mandate and fiscally neutral, well, then you could approve it. And if you did, then step 3 comes into play. And step 3 has 2 unique conditional approvals. Not only would the good people of La Jolla need to say yes to an incorporation in whatever terms this commission were to incorporate, but it would be subject to a vote of the entire city of San Diego. And that is because there's a San Fernando clause in LAFCO statute that came about 20 years ago when San Fernando attempted to leave the city of Los Angeles. And so La Jolla's efforts would be subject to, again, this dual vote. La Jollans, and then La Jollans plus everyone else in San Diego. So it is a heavy lift, but I think what the proponents have shown is propensity to start the process out in a transparent and helpful manner, and I do appreciate Chris Kate on our behalf helping to reconcile what is, an intense process even before a proposal is filed.
Okay, so I would assume then that the La Jolla group, are going to be working with the city of San Diego on revenue neutral ideas and things like that. Is that the case, or do you do that separately and you duke it out in court? I'm just kind of curious how that process works with you, with the city of San Diego.
We hope it's going to be an amicable, and it has been so far. Matt and his team from the mayor's office have been wonderful. They've given all the information that we've asked for on time. We are just sifting through it, and Richard Bergson, I know, has sent questions, follow-up questions back to Matt to look at some other things. We also recently got the property tax numbers. So all of that goes into the mix. We work through all of those numbers to make sure that they work out. And we work with the city to make this, we truly feel this can be a win-win for everybody. We don't want this to be a fight. This is not, we hate you, we're leaving type thing. This is, we want to make it better for everybody, and we think we can be part of the solution, and that's why we're doing this.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing revenue neutral, so it would be
Yes.
great if both sides could agree on what that is, instead of putting that in our laps. Would be my
Oh,
ask.
that, got it, heard, will do.
That would be wonderful. So, all right, with that, is there any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Drake.
Yeah, one brief question. If you leave the city of San Diego, you are no longer represented at the San Diego County Water Authority. Would you seek a representative on that board?
Yes.
Any other questions? Any other commissioners? Thank you very much for the initial introduction.
Thank
and,
you for the opportunity.
Good luck. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, that'll be a short meeting, huh? No. All right, we're going to move on to the consent items. We have the consent calendar, and we have G with the change that's in front of us. For item G, is there a motion or any discussion? Or move the consent calendar?
Second.
And that, multiple seconds, okay.
Thank you, John.
Mr. McCann, second, and that includes the changes put forward on 5G. Any questions, comments? Do we have any speakers on the consent calendar?
None.
None, no hands raised, no emails,
No.
none. We can vote? Okay. I think roll call.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes?
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes, and note that I am abstaining on item C, 6C.
Okay. Commissioner Vanderland?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner McCann?
Aye.
So there are 8 in favor, 0 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to public hearing items. Let's see, let me get my notes here correctly in place. All right, do we have any ex parte or any board members that need to report any ex parte on any of our public hearing items? Seeing none, have none, okay. Andy, see his hand up or anything? No, okay. All right,
No.
moving. Nope, okay, so item 7A has been pulled to October 1st, so we'll go with 7B. For the presentation on 7B.
Thank you. Priscilla?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Before the Commission is a two-part action item involving LAFCO's adopted work plan, and presented today as part of a voluntary public hearing. Today's presentation and agenda report involves two parts. So the first part involves the Commission's regular and at this point early check-in on the work plan and staff resources expended to date in tackling the 30 projects that are targeted for this fiscal year. The second part involves the Commission taking up some proposed amendments that collectively respond to evolving circumstances relative to the work plan that was finalized on May 1st. So Du's going to put up a slide for me, but with these comments at the forefront, I'm going to briefly cover the main points of both parts with the invitation to go into further detail should the Commission prefer. So with respect to the check-in on the work plan, we are proceeding nicely from the outset. As shown up on the screen, the top 10 highest priority to-dos as set by your Commission are underway. 3 are actually approaching completion and headlined by getting contracts and consultants lined up for our newest state planning grant involving SALC 2.0. The remainder of the work plan and the other 20 projects are largely still in the starting blocks, but it is our expectation that several of these will get going over the next month or so, which not so incidentally ties to the second part of this item. So again, the second part ties to proposed amendments that we're requesting the Commission to approve. The first involves comments made by commissioners at our last meeting interested in advancing the scheduled municipal service review on the San Diego County Water Authority. This would in effect move it up from its current placement at number 14 and in the middle of the pack, all the way to the top of the priority list. A parallel request was also voiced that staff provide quarterly updates, which has been incorporated into this proposed amendment. And again, to restate for the record as to why we are proposing this first amendment. Several topical issues were raised during the deliberations of the Fallbrook and Rainbow detachment proceedings, with the common denominator on the County Water Authority's service as well as governance model, and specifically that it was not working for the applicants. And so this may suggest that it's not working for other districts and other cities. And so with these topics, governance and service, they both align with the Commission's legislative duty and task to independently audit local agencies and exercise your regulatory and planning powers, as well as the power of persuasion that comes with it and as you see fit. The second amendment involves changes to the work plan and comes directly from your staff. This would similarly involve an MSR, but this one on healthcare districts within San Diego County. We would propose to move this up to our second highest priority slot going forward into this fiscal year. While this MSR is already placed high on the list at number 8, we believe advancing it towards the top is warranted given additional events over the last several months since the work plan was set. These events suggest that service levels, at least in parts of North County, are increasingly vulnerable. Specifically, and in reference to a communication that you all have in your agenda packet from Palomar Health, evolving circumstances may be prompting another type of out-of-agency service request that has created substantive angst with the Commission as well as many members of the community. And so prioritizing work on the MSR for healthcare districts and their services accordingly serves as our policy effort to move on a study sooner than previously proposed. So Commission, with these broad strokes noted, I have reached the end of my presentation. Before wrapping up, I'd like to end by again noting 2 requests before you. 1, to formally accept and file the progress report on the work plan, and 2, to approve the proposed amendments as presented. I'm gonna kick it back to Keene. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla, and I'll just add, one of the components of adding things to the top of the priority list, and we confirmed this just as part of your consent calendar, it also provides staff the ability to access some assigned monies in our fund balance that you now set aside for high priority projects. And given, both of these targeted studies, healthcare and the County Water Authority, probably generate the need for some outside expertise along the way, moving this as we're proposed to the top of the order certainly would help in that endeavor. So staff is here if you have questions, and I know we probably have some individuals in the audience as well as Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Priscilla. Do we have any specific questions? Okay.
What projects would be delayed by reprioritization, or would there be any delay?
Well, we would shift all the other projects, the two projects that are at the top, which is recruiting and hiring, support staff, as well as commissioner onboarding. We would shift those priorities down.
Thank you.
Mr. Willis.
So with the recent discussion about doing an MSR for the Water Authority, what timeframe are we talking about when we will get that done?
Well, the aim, of course, is this fiscal year, but it is possible that it would bleed into next fiscal year. But the goal would be, if we're moving it to the top of the line, that's where our side of focus would be.
Okay, thanks, Keith.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Drake.
One other question I've got, obviously our focus is on public agencies, but a great amount of health care in the North County in particular is done by independent urgent care centers all over the place. Their ownership is mysterious. We don't know how much of the healthcare process they do. Do we look at them at all?
So the answer is yes, because of those dynamics you said, and so we've already tasked consultant Adam Wilson to start reaching out with clinics throughout the county to start developing some kind of stakeholder group.
Good questions. Okay, we have a couple of speakers on this item. First, Esther Sanchez, Mayor Sanchez, Oceanside, and then followed by Kristen Gassel.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Esther Sanchez. I'm Mayor of the City of Oceanside, and I rise to speak in support of staff's recommendation. First, starting with the hospitals. When I was born in 1956, I'm admitting my age here, there was one hospital in North County, that was Oceanside Community, right? Shortly after that, Tri-City was born. And yet, a year later, and then 5.5 years after my birth, my mom still had to go to San Diego to the hospital, because those doctors were associated with San Diego. 10 years ago, we've seen a surge in infrastructure hospitals. We've seen Palomar, we've seen Scripps, and we've even seen the Naval Hospital. And yet, we still continue to have the need to have services very close to communities, especially with respect to Tri-City and Palomar. And now we have another hospital, and that's Kaiser. So this is, in fact, a very, very critical time. Hospitals are actually failing statewide. When I spoke to the governor's office about a month ago, I heard about $150 million that was available to hospitals that are in need of support. $150 million doesn't cut it. Then after that, the conversation was about 2 hospitals in Imperial County, not even San Diego County, right? And of course, he was talking somewhat San Diego County. This is very, very critical. And as to Water Authority, when in the early 2000s, when we had our first drought, everything changed. What's good for the Water Authority is higher demand for water. And what is happening now? It's less. City of San Diego is going to be cutting it down to 50%, and yet there is no process to figure out what to do with that. City of Oceanside is cutting 50%, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to the City of San Diego. So so many things have changed, and it is really, really critical now. Water is the most critical resource that we have. So it really, really does make sense to look at both of these. One, healthcare, the other, what we need every day, water. So I support it. Thank you very much for considering this and getting it to be priorities, because they truly, truly are priorities for our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Ms. Gaspar.
Well, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kristen Gaspar, Senior Director of Government Affairs for Palomar Health. On the heels of the devastating and costly pandemic, hospitals throughout the state are struggling to maintain adequate levels of care, including district hospitals that are in a heightened state of emergency. While you may have heard that some private hospitals actually returned their CARES Act funding, most district hospitals absorbed millions of dollars in losses due to a shortfall in relief funds. These hospitals fill a vital role in our community, treating low-income patients and underrepresented groups. District hospitals are the safety net for San Diego. Pending Sacramento legislation through SB 525 would further escalate this crisis by establishing a $25 minimum wage for anyone who does work inside of a hospital. This would include your janitors, your guards, your food services, your laundry, the list goes on. This is an $8 billion increase for hospitals on the heels of everything else. And to put it into perspective locally, for a hospital like Palomar, an overnight hit of $80 million. As you can imagine, this puts access to health care at serious risk. This comes at a time when hospitals are already teetering on the brink from the impacts of the pandemic and, of course, the impacts of inflation. In May, as the mayor mentioned, the governor recognized this challenge and he signed a $150 million loan program, which is woefully inadequate, but it's something. California's hospitals are really hurting. At this point in time, it's important for you to know that 50% of California hospitals, half of them are operating in the red. 12 have filed for bankruptcy recently within the past 6 months, and now we're hearing that there's nearly a dozen more that are in the same boat. So suffice it to say, this is a time of absolute crisis for hospitals, but we believe that you can help on a local level. The MSR is a centerpiece, of course, to your work, providing studies of the level and range and performance of services within the entire region. We understand that you've established your 5-year work plan to guide this task. And while we remain empathetic to the many competing priorities in the work plan, we're asking for an expedited MSR and we're in support of staff's recommendation. I believe that given the state of emergency that California hospitals are under, there is more than ample justification for this commission to do so. This time-sensitive study of infrastructure needs, growth and population trends, and stability among San Diego health districts fulfills your core mission to ensure the orderly and efficient provision of services to the residents of this county. The health and well-being of our community should be paramount, and I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Okay, is this, and we need to take action on this one, that's for sure. So, Mr. Willis.
I'll make a motion we adopt.
Motion to adopt. Yep. Is there a second? I heard from Commissioner McKenzie. We have any emails, online comments at all?
No comments online.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take a roll call.
Well, I'll go ahead and maybe comment on the motion.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you want to comment? Go ahead.
I support certainly the first part of the motion in front of us with the update. But in terms of the reprioritization, I mean, we just passed the prioritization a few months ago, right here, and there was a reason why we prioritized the items the way we did, and I continue to support our original decision over the prioritization. In terms of the two specific items in front of us regarding the water authority and the hospitals, I mean, I think we just heard that there is some consensus around exploring the healthcare matter. And if there's consensus around that, then I have no objection to that. I am a member, a board member of the Water Authority by virtue of my service with the City of San Diego, so I do want to disclose that. But I also would hate to see this body, reprioritize something based on representations that were made in a very contentious forum around a, what we heard. So I think that this is, the water authority strikes me as a little reactionary to try to do an MSR on that at this point. So if we were to remove that piece of it, I would be supportive of this motion. With that piece in there, I would not support the motion.
Okay. I'll just make a quick comment on that. We did decide when we were in the process of the detachment to do an MSR on the water authority and not start that until after the decision was made on the detachment. So I think we're here. Moving up to number one is, I think, an additional move on that part. But I just, the priorities and times change and priorities change, and water is number one on people's mind, and water and healthcare are got the top two things I think affecting people here in Southern California. And I do think when we have talked about the hospitals and all we learned about water, and I don't think this isn't really trying to target or hurt or blame or lash out back at the water authority at all. I just think it's a good time for an outside agency to take a look, and if we come to some conclusions, we give them recommendations. They can follow them or not, but I don't think it's in retribution for the action being brought forward. And you're right, there was some disparaging things said on both sides, but I'm going to support the motion. So, any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Whitburn?
I'll be on my island and vote no.
Commissioner McCann?
Aye.
There are 7 in favor, 1 opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor, this is Andy, may I speak? Chair?
Yes, Andy. Sorry, I didn't know if you had your hand up.
Just a comment, I wanted to thank staff for bringing this item back. Both items, as you stated, are very, very important. And I have particular passion about the water authority and the MSR. And so thank you, staff, for bringing that back, and thank you, Commission, for your vote of affirming both of those changes.
All right, thank you. Good comments. Okay, we're going to move on to our business calendar. This is items 8A, B, C, and D. Beginning with 8A. King, do we have a presentation?
We do. We're going to start off quickly with Priscilla and then hear from some of our invitees.
Thank you, Commissioners. Priscilla Munn-Power. I'm really excited to bring this item to you. We have the final report on SALC 1.0 after having worked on this for the past 2 years. As you will recall, we brought this item to you in August of 2020, seeking to submit a planning grant in collaboration with the Resource Conservation District of Greater San Diego County. We have completed that work. We have the final report in front of you. I just want to note before they come up that it's been a true honor getting to know the farmers in throughout San Diego County, sitting in through the listening sessions. And it's been also an honor working with the RCD of Greater San Diego, their staff, Joel Kramer, Cody Held, and Ann Baldridge have really put their heart into it, in addition to just all the work that goes into bringing this final report to you. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ann to give you the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Priscilla. Good morning, everybody. Do we have the presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Well, just to begin, I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today. We'll be talking about the San Diego Agricultural Planning Program. My name is Ann Baldridge. I'm the Executive Director at the Resource Conservation District of Greater San Diego County. And before we dive in into the particulars about SALC, I just wanted to give a very quick overview of who we are and what we do. As an RCD, our work is focused on environmental conservation, We're one of 3 RCDs in San Diego County, along with Mission RCD and Upper San Luis Rey RCD. And we cover a lot of different topics in the work that we carry out across our district. We work on wildfire resilience and environmental education, as well as habitat restoration and pollinator health. And we do a lot of work to support agriculture here in San Diego County, both on an urban level, community gardens and urban farms, as well as through our carbon farming program. And if you're not familiar with the term, carbon farming is a term that describes a suite of practices that land management practices that can be used on farms and ranches that hold carbon in the soil and bring about other benefits too, like increased water holding capacity within the soil and improved soil health. We have a carbon farming program that helps farmers and ranchers understand these land management practices and implement them. And we carry out a number of different outreach activities and programs, including planning. We support producers with a variety of planning documents, such as grazing management plans and carbon farm plans. We provide technical assistance in terms of things like workshops in support with grant writing applications, but also with soil testing and with irrigation audits. We help farmers and ranchers implement the practices that we are working with them on, and then we also support with monitoring analysis to look at the long-term impact of these practices. Sorry, it's not advancing. I'm probably going to make it go like 4 slides forward now. There we go. Thank you. So agriculture is part of our culture here in San Diego County and has many benefits. So of course, there's a benefit to the local economy. About $1.75 billion in sales come from agriculture each year. It did. We rely on it for the food that we eat. We grow about 200 different crops here in San Diego, consumed by local people, but also exported across the world. We're a leader in agriculture here in San Diego County. For example, we top nursery sales in the state. And farmers are land stewards. They care for about 276,000 acres of land with the potential to increase that. And lastly, farming benefits the environment. It has conservation value. Working lands can sustain wildlife, which we've seen at Rancho Humul, where targeted grazing practices have supported the burrowing owl population. And it's really important to support farmers now more than ever because they face so many challenges. We have actually lost ag land over the last decades by about 30%, but also with the cost of doing business increasing and threats from ongoing droughts and heat waves, farmers need support now more than ever. And so working with LAFCO, we've just wrapped up a 2-year planning grant through the Department of Conservation through their Sustainable Agriculture Lands Conservation Program, or SALC. This is SALC Point 1, as Priscilla referred to earlier. The goal of SALC is to protect at-risk agricultural lands and to prevent farms and ranches from going out of business and keeping those lands in agricultural production. Also to avoid increases in greenhouse gas emissions, which may occur if ag lands are transferred to other land uses. And our program was very much in line with those 2 goals. Under this grant, LAFCO is the lead agency and our RCD was the coordinating partner, but it was a very collaborative project across the board. You can see the logos here of some of the other project partners. Our project focused on gaining an understanding of agriculture here in San Diego County, understanding where agriculture is happening, mapping the lands being used for agriculture, and then understanding what the needs and challenges of farmers are here in our county so that we could learn how to support them and how to keep their land in agriculture. Our project focused on 4 main tasks. The first was mapping, looking at all the ag lands, including grazing lands in the county, and conducting a greenhouse gas analysis. Outreach was central to this work. We really wanted to hear from as many farmers and ranchers as possible to make their voices heard and to really understand what their challenges are. Policy inventory analysis was the 3rd task, looking at the policies related to agriculture. And then strategic planning was the 4th task. This included developing a set of policy recommendations and going out to groups across the county and talking about those recommendations and advocating for policy change, as well as creating a final report on the findings of the project. You'll see the final report in your packet. A beautiful design copy will be available soon, and we'll be sure to share that with you. Okay, so as we conducted our outreach and started really understanding what the needs and challenges of farmers were, We really wanted to help move that forward and by drilling down into some of the priorities we were hearing. And so we formed 3 different working groups. These focused on one topic each, again, that we were hearing coming out of the outreach phase. We really felt it was important to include a diversity of perspective in these working groups, and again, really wanted to include farmers in that conversation. Each working group was composed of farmers or agricultural producers, representatives of organizations that support agriculture, as well as decision makers or the representatives. And the 3 topics focused on were water availability, land access, and workforce development. Each working group looked at a program that had been successful or implemented elsewhere in the state to look at the viability for making that happen here in San Diego County. So these are just 3 examples of the trends that we were seeing in the outreach phase. And then these, amongst others, were translated into a set of policy recommendations. So there are 10 that came out of the report. I'll go through each one briefly. The first, and this is the one that we really heard resoundingly throughout the program, was that agricultural liaisons are needed at city and county levels of government. Somebody who can translate between farmers and the government to help them understand the regulations and to access the resources that they need. The second is looking at lease agreements that invest in working lands. The third is to create regional land use plan to protect agriculture, and there is a handout that you will have received that goes deeper into the narrative of that and what we found to be important there. Also looking at ways to help farmers save money and use less water by transitioning to lower water use crops. This is a project that has been successful elsewhere called Crop Swap, and you'll also have a handout about that project. This is an example of how that policy recommendation can be carried forward. Number 5, we're looking at training and equipping producers to adopt climate smart practices, so more resources for them to put climate smart practices on the land. Farm worker housing was a priority that came up a lot. You know, access to housing is tough here in San Diego, and looking at how we can keep farmers living closer to where they're working. Number 7 looked at developing recycled water facilities with quotas for agricultural use. Number 8 is to analyze costs and benefits of small farmers, and this is so exciting to know that South Point 2 will be addressing this, looking at what farmers and ranchers need to be viable businesses or to remain viable businesses here in San Diego County. Number 9, looked at expanding technical assistance with more vocational training. We know that farmers need training. They have a really busy job. They have a lot to do. They have to run a business, look after farm workers, and look after their land. So looking for more training to help farmers be successful. And lastly, building farmer capacity with training and services. So sorry, I swapped them. That last one is more about farmer capacity. The prior one was for the people, the organizations that are supporting agriculture. More resources for them to be able to support farmers and ranchers more efficiently and effectively. Okay, so this is a big job. It's not something that can be done by any one agency or any one organization. Collaboration is so key to this process, and there are many key players needed to make change in agriculture. Of course, decision-making bodies, elected officials are vital to this process, but farmers are too. We really want to make sure that we can all work together with farmers to make lasting change in agriculture for our county. So we see, combining or bringing together agency decision makers, agricultural stakeholders, and those organizations that support ag together to find the solutions that will work here in San Diego. And so, although this grant has now wrapped up, we're looking at ways to keep this work moving forward. And so our RCD is looking for funding opportunities to carry out some of these policy recommendations, or at least to help move them forward. One example is a grant that we've recently applied to in partnership with the County of San Diego to a new Department of Conservation grant opportunity called Climate Smart Working Land, or Climate Smart Land Management, which focuses on climate smart solutions for farms and ranches. One of the items that we'll be trying to pursue if funding is successful is that idea of finding an agricultural liaison to sit between farmers and the government to help farmers navigate the processes. Also so exciting to know that South 2.0 is going forward. We're really looking forward to that process and to supporting however we can. I
think that about wraps it up. Joel and I are happy to answer any questions you may have, and if you want to get in touch later, my email address is there, or you can reach out to our ag team at the Ag RCD San Diego address.
Yes, Mr. Willis.
I love what the RCDs do. I just love it. In a conversation with Don recently, Don Butts, he's saying that the MOU is approved with the RC, has approved the RC, and thanks to Adam Wilson for his work on this. The MOU has helped the situation between the different RCDs. Just things are moving more smoothly now.
Yeah, and I think that will probably be discussed in just a moment too.
Okay,
Absolutely,
good.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McKenzie.
I just have a quick question. One, on your grant funding, is most of it a 50-50 match or 100%, or is it just kind of?
It depends on the grant.
I don't know that.
Yeah, so it was for the Department of Conservation one that we just applied for. Do you remember what the match requirement was? Was it 50-50?
I think it was 20%. Facilitate the term.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Less than that. So normally it's not 50%. It's somewhere between 0 to 15. It's hard for us to fund large infrastructure projects that farmers are looking for, as opposed to technical assistance projects which require less match.
Thank you for an excellent report. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the report, bringing it forward, and I'm glad you're working with the farmers and absolutely more liaisons, I think, between farming and the policymakers, particularly in Sacramento, I think, because they can, sometimes you have people up there making decisions that haven't, stepped on a farm or gone to, know some of the regional issues. So I absolutely agree with the carbon farm planning and the amount they can sequester, and the more crops they grow, they can sequester more carbon. But I got a question I heard it mentioned several times, and I see it several times in the report, is climate smart solutions. But I'm trying to grasp what a climate smart solution is and how that might be more costly to farmers, or if you can keep it revenue neutral, or what's the goal with these? I don't know, it's kind of nebulous right now, but what are climate smart solutions?
So climate smart solutions are typically land-based solutions where you are trying to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases and holding those in the soil. So agricultural lands are thought to have the potential to be carbon sinks. So any kind of practices that we can do on the land that extracts carbon from the air and holds it in the soil is considered a climate smart solution. So an example on a farm would be something like a hedgerow. So planting long rows of perennial plants that will be there for a long time and be able to draw down that carbon and hold it in the soil. You want to elaborate?
And then on the flip side of that, farms are having to deal with the reality of climate change. We see that with water scarcity, heat waves, and so we have to help farms adapt to those conditions, continue to produce food under harsher conditions. And so again, some of those methods that sequester carbon in the soil, like adding mulch onto the soil, also reduces the ground temperature so that when a heat wave comes, avocados are still in production.
Okay, and I'm not sure if this is in your lane or not, but I do think one of the farmers should get credit for, I think, this for the carbon reductions and the efforts they're putting forward. And I know there's mitigation measures for many things out there for new housing and things like that, and usually it's sidewalks or bike lanes or something like that. But if we could put money towards the actual sequestering of carbon, and I don't know, give farmers credit for that, or they get some sort of, maybe that's a mitigation measure possibly in the future, that would be something that would be incentivized and not kind of pushed aside.
Yeah, definitely. And just, it's not quite what you're referring to, although that's a great idea. There are existing grant programs, example, through the California Department of Food and Agriculture that incentivize farmers to implement those practices in the first place, so they can receive funding from the state to cover the costs of putting those practices on the land.
Well, I'm just trying to get them credit where credit's due if we can in any way. So.
And we're really glad for the county's leadership in developing a carbon farming pilot program toward that effort. So thank you so much.
All right. All right, any other questions, comments? Do we have any emails? I don't know, public speakers? Oh, caught you midnight. Yes.
I just have one quick question.
Oh, sure.
The very last page says there's appendices, but I didn't have any additional appendices. Are those available, or what happened to them?
Along with the final version of the report, those are still being finalized, so if you'd like any concrete information, that's fine, but they're not designed yet.
Okay, I didn't know.
Happy
if
to
they
answer
didn't
any
get
questions you
printed.
have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll have an opportunity to receive that report once it's done, okay. Any other, no one else?
No, no comments.
Is there a motion or a second to accept? Mr. Willis
Motion.
and Mr. McCann? Second. Okay, thank you very much. Saw your reach in there. All right, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner McCann?
Aye.
There are 8 in favor, 0 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, thank you very much.
And staff did an excellent job.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, item 8B, this is our Resource Conservation District's Ad Hoc Committee report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to ask Michaela Peters to start us off before we hear from Adam Wilson and some others.
Good morning, Chair Desmond and Commissioners. Michaela Peters, Analyst 1. And for the record, I'm going to offer up a quick introduction and some context before heading over the presentation to Consultant Adam Wilson. This item itself ties to our adopted work plan and the resources dedicated by the Commission starting last fiscal year to take up a set of key recommendations in LAFCO's recent municipal service review on resource conservation districts in San Diego County. And specific to the theme of context, where once there were more than a dozen, there are now 3 RCDs left in San Diego County as a result of multiple consolidations. The 3 remaining RCDs in their existing jurisdictional boundaries should be shown on the slide, but involve Mission, Greater San Diego, and Upper San Luis Rey. As we learned in our recent MSR, all 3 RCDs do good and important work in protecting and enhancing the natural environment. However, all 3 RCDs face some serious challenges as well. And not the least of these challenges involve navigating historical anglishes with each other in the pursuit of grant projects, which importantly has led to increasing conflicts with LAFCO statute and our role by the legislature to make boundaries matter and regulate out-of-agency service activities. This dynamic, and specifically competition for grant funding and conflict with LAFCO statutes, served as the prompt for the Commission to form an ad hoc committee. And I will now turn over the presentation to Consultant Adam Wilson to discuss the work of the ad hoc over the last year and recommendations generated with staff and what we see as good next steps.
Thank you, Michaela. Good morning, Commissioners. And I do want to give a special thanks to Commissioner Willis for your interest in the RCDs and through this process, and I appreciate you teeing it up very briefly on the previous item. Adam Wilson here, LAFCO consultant, and very proud to bring this item back before you today. I want to give you some quick background, which Michaela kind of broadly grazed through. Back in February of 2021, LAFCO completed a municipal service review for the 3 local resource conservation districts. In short, it highlighted some issues and identified some recommendations to address them. In your package is a brief summary report of the MSR. The focus item that surfaced from that MSR involved some programs and services being provided by RCDs outside of their district boundaries, which is related to Government Code 56133, which your commission is getting intimately more familiar with over the recent years. As you can expect, this caused some tension amongst the districts and frankly some conflict on whose responsibility it was to deliver those services. With this in mind, your executive officer recommended that an ad hoc committee be created to tackle some of these issues, which your commission approved back in August of last year. The ad hoc committee consisted of 2 representatives from each RCD and 3 at-large members representing the ag, fire, and water industries, which are 3 important industries related to the services that RCDs provide. The committee met 5 times over the course of 7 months. I facilitated and moderated each meeting, as well as LAFCO staff and council involved with their respective duties. The ad hoc started their work by developing a working agenda, which included defining how RCDs are structured and function. They provided their known district boundaries and the services and programs they individually deliver, and identified 3 options how to best resolve their jurisdictional matters and future practices. Ultimately, this led to the development of an MOU, which essentially becomes their Bible and provides the terms and conditions on how the 3 districts will independently and jointly work together in this region. I want to emphasize that this is a really great accomplishment. These districts in previous years had a little bit of disregard to one another, even to the point where cease and desist orders were issued, and LAFCO a bit stuck playing referee. But I want to stress that the 3 new executive directors that I met in the beginning and through this entire process, they were committed to putting the past behind them and looking at the good of the future to really support one another in a collective manner. And the MOU became the byproduct of that commitment, which deserves some very high praise today. In conclusion, I also provided a memo in your package that recounts what I highlighted today and provides some additional recommendations that would continue some of this work into a second year. The premise of this additional work would touch on doing some GIS mapping to codify each RCD's boundaries and provide an overlay in the mapping which would illustrate their services and programs. More so, items related to the Principal Act, which were modified up in Sacramento this year, and we want to make sure that those changes align to our local rules and policies. And lastly, we want to make a final look at some additional boundary changes or sphere of influence updates that may be warranted. I'm more than happy to defer to staff if they wish to elaborate those final recommendations in your staff report. I thank you for your time and opportunity to be a part of this process. I'm hopeful to your consideration today to expand on our work, and I do want to thank again the 3 RCDs one last time for a job well done in adopting this MOU. I'm confident their words before you today will echo around the same sentiments. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Adam. Any commissioners have any questions?
Adam, I just wanted to ask you about the ad hoc composition it's coming up with. So your view to have 2 members from each RCD, and then how did you come to that?
Yeah, so it was with collaboration of the 3 executive directors. They all felt that it would be important to also have an additional board member from each district so that one of the decision makers could be a part of the process. And then again, the 3 at-large members represented the fire, ag, and water industries, which are really important to the services and programs that they provide.
So pretty much all the parties involved were in agreement with the composition?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to add, just a great job and for the RCDs all getting together and coming to their own solutions and conclusions on how to work together, and I think that's a phenomenal job.
Yeah, did you?
Who's this?
Yeah, submit a speaker slip after.
Good morning, excuse me.
Yeah, can you say your name and who you're representing?
Yep, good morning. My name is Darcy Cook, and I serve as the District Manager of Mission Resource Conservation in North San Diego County. And I'm here today, thank you for the opportunity, to make a comment on the RCD San Diego LAFCO ad hoc committee. I want to just say that thanks in large part to Adam Wilson's impartial support.
We're having trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry, what?
We're having trouble hearing you.
Is this any better?
Yes.
Okay, my voice doesn't carry very well. So I want to just thank in large part Adam Wilson for his impartial support for this process. And due to that, the ad hoc committee was an effective and a successful process to bring the parties to the table together for a joint resolution and to develop a collaborative approach going forward. The current district managers are all relatively new and we're forward-looking, and we have developed a collaborative and supportive relationship. As a small and lean organization, the only downside to this process was the time and the cost. And for year 2, Mission is looking forward to addressing equitable boundary changes and is not looking to consolidate, as we strongly believe that RCDs are best suited as a local community organization. And then, for the record, and with all due respect, I'd like to make a clarification to Adam Wilson's memo to Keen Simons in your packet, dated July 28th of this year. It can be found on page 245 at the bottom. And Adam states that Mission's support for the San Diego County Water Authority has historically been a major area of contention. And I'd just like to clarify that Mission had a long-standing very mutual agreement with Greater San Diego since the 1980s. That was formalized in an MOU in 2009 until 2017, when we were issued a cease and desist for the work covered under that MOU. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Darcy. You. Did you speak again?
Hello again. Again, my name is Ann from the RCD of Greater San Diego County, and I participated in the ad hoc committee along with our board president, Don Butts. And really just to echo what Adam and Darcy have said, it was a really great opportunity to participate in this committee. You know, it was formed, as you know, after a recent municipal service review that addressed the issues that the RCD have been having.
Thank you.
I think we all came into this with, you know, really high spirit of collaboration. We really wanted to work together. The three, Darcy and I are definitely newer to the role, and Amy has been there, you know, from Upper San Luis Rey too. So, you know, we're all new to working together, but also really supportive of each other and wanting to collaborate. So, although there had been some challenges, we were willing to move forward. In addition to those kinds of challenges, I think there was also a lack of clarity or understanding of the protocol for working outside of our service areas, but within our spheres of influence. So it was really helpful to have this committee as a forum where those issues could be addressed, explored, and better understood. It was a very productive and useful forum, and a great outcome to have the MOU ready to be put into action for collaboration across the RCDs. And I think it's a really successful resolution of the issues, and really look forward to more collaboration moving forward. Again, thank you to Adam for your facilitation, to Alex for his legal counsel input, to LAFCO staff for being supportive of this, and to all the other, you know, non-RCD members for taking the time to participate in this committee. Thank you.
Thanks. So I just have a quick question on boundaries. Are boundaries, and if you want to work outside of your boundary, do you have to get the permission of the other agencies whose boundary it is to do any work there?
Yes.
Thank
so
you.
I'm sure Kim can explain this way better than me. But yeah, I mean, if we were to, like, for example, our RCD performs services in Upper San Luis Rey RCD service area. They have a very limited capacity as an RCD, but we have MOUs with them to provide those services and to keep LAFCO,
And those MOUs are done before the services are
Yes.
rendered. Thank
Correct.
you very much. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt action one.
Okay. We have a motion on number one. I thought we already did this.
Second.
Is this the second time we did this on the same item? No?
This is
Okay.
8B then.
Okay.
That was 8A.
That was 8A. All right. Okay. Getting lost here. Okay. So we have motion and second. Do we have any public comments or questions or anything? Mr. Commissioner Drake.
Yeah, just a question about the boundaries. You raised a very good point. Who actually controls the boundaries? Who actually has the ownership of the boundaries? Is it SANDAG, or what agency actually holds that data?
That would be LAFCO.
Really? We have a GIS system?
You have duty next month to walk the boundaries and
Understood. I'm getting a motorcycle.
keep them in their lane. No, and it falls on us, but hopefully they work it out before it comes to us and
Very good.
duking it out, so we appreciate that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please. 8B.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie? Yes. Commissioner Vanderland?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner McCann?
Yes.
There are 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We're going to move on to 8C. This is the update to personnel policies.
I'm going to ask Priscilla to quickly cover this item.
Okay.
Thank you, Keen. So today, Commission, you have a scheduled check-in for our adopted work plan respect with a 2-part comprehensive update to LAFCO's personnel policies. The first part addressed today covers the proposed scope of work for the personnel policies, and staff is seeking the Commission's green light in proceeding forward. The scope of work has been developed by our outside consultant, Regional Government Services Authority, or RGS, and done so to tackle best practices while scaling it to our unique needs. Specifically, the unique needs tied to LAFCO being A government agency, and B, having less than 10 full-time employees. This means there's a dual need to A, have our own standalone policies to guide employee behavior and the public investment therein, as well as B, relatively light and emphasizing intuitiveness, given we don't have a dedicated HR division. These needs are further illuminated in comparison to our existing policies, which largely cross-reference the County of San Diego with their rather heavy footprint, like utilizing a civil service commission. So with this in mind, the proposed scope of work within your agenda packet is divided into 4 distinct sections with their own subsections, and I'm going to have Dew pull that up on the screen for me. And so those 4 main items are: 1, having an introduction, then having a section that covers working conditions, excuse me as I pause real quick to have that pulled up for me. Thank you, Do appreciate it. So the second subsection being working conditions, and having subsections behind that, so ethical conduct, teleworking practices, travel and expense reimbursement being some of the items covered, again with a full list within your agenda packet, as well as employment administration, covering topics such as discipline procedures, benefits that are provided to employees, timekeeping requirements, dress codes, and more. And then again, of course, leave administration, which is very important, right? So FMLA, CFRA, pregnancy disability leave, which I will be using soon, so great timing. Time off to vote, sick leave, etc. Those are a few of the breakout topics and sort of the subsections. So again, presenting the item, Commission, we're looking for your nod of approval and proceeding forward with the scope of work. We, of course, welcome your input on any topics or items that you'd like for us to cover and address, and then again, how you would like for those items to be addressed. We relatedly want to telegraph a bit on part 2 of the update, which involves directly working with RGS and actually preparing a draft personnel policy manual, and step with then bringing a full draft to the Commission for a first reading as early as December. However, if the Commission prefers a different approach to what I just have stated, for example, you may want us to task an ad hoc to actively participate in the drafting, we can also do this. So with that, Commission, I conclude my presentation and available for any questions. I'll kick it back to Keene.
Sure.
Hang on, Harry.
Oh, sorry.
Just be quiet. Okay. All right. Mr. Willis.
It just seems like that what you're saying is that a lot of the terminology for the county, was really time to have our own terminology, our own rules, and our own procedures. That's what it was.
Absolutely.
And we really need to. I'd like we're overdue for this, so to speak.
We are a standalone governmental entity, and so as Commissioner McKenzie has noted, the cross-references to the County of San Diego served its purpose, but at this point, may be more problems than solving.
But there are sections that we're going to have to still be married to the county, correct?
What's wrong with it? Go ahead.
I think at this point we will have standalone sections. There may be some duplication of what the county provides, but the big takeaway from my perspective is clearly allowing the Commission as the employer to have standalone provisions that do not require to go to the Civil Service Commission.
Well, the one that I'm thinking about is retirement. And
Correct.
I mean, there's a few things that are tied.
Yes, so we will certainly make reference to, you have 2 contracts. You have a contract with the county for healthcare benefits, and then you have a contract separately with the Employee Retirement Association. So yes, we will certainly tie those into the standalone policies.
Will they have the policy ready so that your compensation is changed from the county's process to a LAFCO process?
You're a bit flat-footed on that one.
I'll jump in on this one. We would anticipate that the consultant they're reviewing all of the personnel rules, which includes the EO compensation and all the ties for every employee at every level, including the EO.
Yeah, it's tied to.
Tied to the county, so they're gonna be reviewing all of that and coming forward with their recommendation. And my expectation is that will also be removed from reference to the county, but we'll see.
Now, is there a way that we have policies and we have rules? Is there a way to marry those and have one document?
Let's see what the consultant for the company.
So there is a way, this very first step in the adopted work plan is just the personnel, which falls under your rules. So perhaps going into fiscal year 25, if the commission would like to see a reconciliation of our two separate documents, as you note, we can certainly do that. Or if you'd like us to bring back an item for the work plan this year to do that, we can, but it's not in the work plan as of today.
Could you communicate with RSG and, ask it would seem logical if the commission wanted those two documents to be one document, that they be notified up front rather than creating one policy and then having to go back and review and revise to be able to create one document and eliminate the rules.
I'll take that one too. If you look at the proposed scope of services, the first one does say review all existing personnel-related policy documents. So I do believe they're going to have a comprehensive review of all of it, and that will inform their recommendation about the new set that we bring forward for your review.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Whitmer.
Looking at the proposed scope of services, there's a document review and recommendations. I'm not sure I see a specific reference in there to consulting with agency employees to get input on, the recommendations and such. Is that part of the scope? I would think that we would want to hear from the employees themselves.
So actually, Vice Chair Whitburn, that is not part of the scope. You bring up a good question. That is, for the non-budgeted employees, what check-in would we have with the commission? If admittedly that went over my head until you mentioned that right now. So,
or at least with the
I think we can certainly incorporate that into the process. So thank you for that suggestion.
All right. Would you like to make a motion, Mr. Whitmer?
Sure, I will make a motion to adopt the recommendation with the inclusion of
Employee input?
Employee input.
There you go. Okay.
I thought this was a non-action item.
Well, I think at this point, we're getting some clear direction. It's covered on the
Okay.
agenda, so.
Well, does it have to be, can we just give the direction, or do we need to vote on that for the direction? I think, is there a consensus on the direction? I don't see any.
I think you can just give the direction.
Okay, all right, so like.
Fine with that.
Okay, all right. All right, well, let's see, I gotta see if Andy has his hand up or anything. Do you have no emails, public comments? No? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. We gave direction on that. Any other direction? No, we're good? Okay, moving on to 8D. This is the outside audit report.
I will cover this item quickly, Chair. So better late than never. So we do have our fiscal year 22 audit report before the commission. All is well. No errors, no material omissions, no reporting from the prior fiscal year. So again, all is well with the financial statements and the accounting that goes with it. And thank you to Erica Sellen again for another cool audit. I will note that there were two recommendations that the outside auditor provided to your commission. It's included in the accompanying board letter addressed to the commission. Both deal with a topic that your staff admittedly had never paid attention to before, and for good reasons, and that is GASB 87. and the requirement or the best practices that governmental agencies create policies to capitalize right-to-use leases at a certain monetary level. Now, the reason, Commission, that we had never talked or thought about this at LAFCO staff, because until we entered into our 10-year lease for new office space in Bankers Hill, we didn't have any need to ever capitalize our right-to-use leases. Nevertheless, so the recommendation before you today, or not today, but a recommendation by the auditor that we're going to work on over the next several months is that we develop a policy to capitalize right-to-use leases at a level of more than $40,000. So, right, for us, that basically means office lease. We don't have any other leases that would ever trigger that amount. And then separately, there's a recommendation for us to, whenever possible, enter into one-year leases or even month-to-month. Again, that makes sense for most governmental agencies, although for us, again, we don't get into leases for automobile pools or things of that nature. So really, we're just dealing with the office lease. But we will work on those recommendations and bring back something to the Commission shortly. But again, a clean audit for 22. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Just one comment?
Sure.
Okay, well, first of all, why is it so late?
Yes.
O'Connor and Associates.
So,
should we consider changing?
From beautiful Nevada, California. So there was a combination of issues. First and foremost, our own contract bookkeeper had, Leaf & Cole had some changes on their end, and so we were late in reconciling our monthly statements. And then, you know, the reality is one of the reasons we get a good deal with O'Connor is, you know, we're not, we give them some latitude in getting to us, but this should have been done certainly a few months earlier. Staff is going to pay more attention to the timeline going forward. We have one more year. It's not on O'Connor. It's
Okay.
more on us. We have one more year of our contract with O'Connor, and just because I know you all like the weeds on this, O'Connor is the replacement for R.J. Riccardi, who is the accounting firm that we actually have a contract with, but R.J. retired. Michael is assuming the contract. Next year, we'll bring you a RFP to go out to bid.
Okay, so
This is to formally receive and file, so we do need a roll call on this.
Move to,
what's a motion from Commissioner McKenzie
I'll
and
second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All right, comments? Any Erica, you got any comments or emails or anything on this one?
None.
None? Okay. All right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
yes.
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Yes.
Commissioner Willis?
Aye.
Commissioner Whitburn?
Yes.
Commissioner McCann?
Aye.
So 8 in favor, 0 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, well, that finishes our business items here for today. We're going to go into the executive officer's reports.
Just very quickly on my end, thank you, Chair. So before everyone, you shall have a bounded version of our Diamond Celebration, LAFCO at 60. You are all represented in one way or the other in this document. I wanted to extend my appreciation to Michaela Peters, who put this all together on her own with Chase Design, and we've already received a number of compliments on this document. So again, hopefully you can put this somewhere in your offices as a reference to you and your brethren alumni of LAFCO over the last 60 years. So thank you, Michaela.
Thank you very much.
And the diamonds are coming later?
Yeah, yeah, later, yes. Do you have any commissioner announcements or requests for future items? Mr. Willis.
I have a couple, please. One is the subject of Dallas Center Fire Protection District. This is a passion that I'm not going to shut up about until it gets fixed. They're lacking in funding of about $2 million, which can be made up by the County of San Diego, I believe, of an $8.17 billion budget. And I would like to have this open for discussion again in October, November, whether it would be appropriate for LAFCO to take a stand on this.
Well, let's consult before we say to put that on, because I'm not sure that's a LAFCO item.
Well, I mean, boards should take a stand on things, even if it's not directly related. So I would like
Let's
LAFCO
have,
to take a
tend to disagree. Well,
Okay.
let's have council look at that. Okay,
I can look at it and then we can bring it back.
okay, thank you very much.
Well, that was number one. And number two, Keen and I had a discussion about, and when I ran for re-election, the issue came up of annexations and how expensive they are. And I wanted to open a discussion about either October, November, about every 3 years, there's a possibility that they would have one on us, one annexation on us. Of course, that involves the budget. It's a budget issue. But for so many smaller districts, it's tough for them to afford an annexation. So I would like to have that on the agenda to discuss it and possibly adopt that as a possibility.
How about we first, maybe have a presentation on how that works? Because quite frankly, I don't know what the ramifications of that might be given one of us, but let's, I guess maybe an education on the process might be best
Don't we
first.
have the ability to waive fees under certain circumstances? Or let me rephrase, the executive officer has that authority?
Yes, the commission actually has the authority to waive and/or reduce a fee, an application fee. Commissioner Willis brought up, and I do think it's an interesting policy question. So for the small, especially for the smaller districts that pay into LAFCO, would there be a credit established that would allow them on some timeline that the commission establishes, whether it be every 3 years, every 5 years, that they get guaranteed, if you will, a waiver, right? That it's not a discretionary decision by the commission, but they would, as part of paying into LAFCO, they could come forward with some kind of boundary issue that they've been eyeing and come forward and basically exercise that chip, if you will. If the chair is agreeable, I certainly could provide a memorandum on the topic to inform the commission, and then perhaps if the chair sees fit to add it to the agenda, we can do that. And perhaps that's the best approach.
Yeah, I think I need more of an education. I think for most of the board members, that we, in commissioners, an education on how the process actually works right now. It's a little further in the weeds than we would normally get into, and before we make any decision.
I would just.
And include in there, what the cost is, because it is a very simple cost, or a very simple annexation of, two parcels. The cost is much less than if you're annexing
Yeah.
200 acres.
But then we got small districts and we got big districts. We got to make sure we're treating them all
Well,
fairly.
what's the definition of small?
I don't know. See, that's kind of where this might lead to.
I would just look at it.
As big as large.
I was just maybe looking at it from the standpoint of I didn't get that joke. Mainly look at it from the standpoint, especially how do the smaller districts afford something like that, if they really need something.
I think we can take a look into how those charges are put forward and get a better idea, and then maybe if we want to massage them, that might be appropriate. Okay. Anyone else? No?
Can I give you a quick overview of CalAFCO?
Absolutely, please do.
Okay. This wasn't on CalAFCO, but just for information's sake, if you remember last year, Levine's SB 1439, which was required the conflict out if you received more than $250 in funds from a party who was going to be 12 months before and 12 months after that hearing. The FPPC has now put that into their rules and regulations, and that's under 18438. So that has been filled out. You can go to FPPC and see all of their sections under that codifies that into the FPPC. CalAFCO, we met last week and went over a number of bills, and one of them was the land use streamlined housing approval. That is now a 2-year bill, and it was brought up, I believe, in one of the comments regarding the Imperial healthcare hospitals. That is a convoluted issue. The city of El Centro has a hospital. That hospital is in the red by a whole lot of dollars. The special district hospital has the money, and what they wanted to do was basically take over the special district and therefore have the dollars that the special district had. Imperial had no idea of that was happening, hospital. They did, they opposed it, LAFCO opposed it, and mainly because that first go-around, it excluded anything having to do with LAFCO. It was strictly a legislative issue. So they circumvented LAFCO, that was opposed. Next iteration is that they put LAFCO in, but it was an administrative position only. And as we understand it, as of July 28th, we don't know what's going on. Because it's gone back and forth, and at this point in time, I guess El Centro is suing the district. And the last that our executive officer heard was that the hospital district was in favor of they were in favor of the position that was before them, and that was the fact that LAFCO had an administrative say in it. It was strictly administrative. The other one was SB 360, and that was Blake Spear, and that had to do with the California Coastal Commission, where it allows members serving on LAFCO. They can also be on the Coastal Commission, and that was signed July 31st. That was basically it. We did have a discussion relevant to proposals for next year that would go into the omnibus bill, and that is, omnibus bill is one bill with a number of different parts to it, but they all have to be approved and are not subject to any dissension from any of the what do you want to call it? Stakeholders. I think there's 35, 37 stakeholders that these omnibus bills have to go through. And one of them, I think if you heard today, the word was to use the word proposal. There's comments as to whether or not there was a question to replace proposals with applications. And coming from a planning standpoint, you make a proposal and you go in and you talk about it, and you come out with a game plan, and then you make the formal application and put your money down. So it's a question of whether everybody else sees it that black and white or not. And that was the other big thing was with the county of LA. They have a real issue now since COVID is no longer, and you can no longer Zoom, of getting a quorum. And because LA is so big, and the traffic, go 10 miles, and it's still going to take you an hour, hour and a half to get there. So they have not had a quorum in about a year. And what they would like to do is be able to do some kind of legislation, and I'm looking at next year to be able to, to be able to Zoom the city ad hoc committee. So, that's in the my report.
Did LAFCO take a position on SB 399?
390. Yes, we opposed it to begin with, and we're still opposing it.
That's okay. That's one put forward by Assemblyman Bonner for the countywide vote.
That's the county water authority. Everybody gets a vote.
Okay. Okay. So let's see what else we got. Let me get back to my adjournment. Adjournment, yeah, that's the next item on here. We do have a meeting of the Executive Officer Compensation Committee meeting directly following this meeting. And that's Mr. Vanderlyn, Mr. Whitburn, and myself on that committee. So that can be held in this room.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, well with that, our next meeting is when? October 1st. Thank you very much for everyone making it today. This meeting is adjourned.